Okay, we're going live. Excellent. So on all three platforms, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch. Anyone joining now, feel free to maybe drop in the chat, in the comments, tell us where you're logging in from. Maybe also, yeah, if you're currently working on any business app right now. And yeah, if you already have any questions related to workflows, we're here to talk about that today with Romain. And we have already someone from Quebec, Canada. Good to have you here. Romain, you are logging from France, I guess, Paris. Are you?
Paris, yes.
Cool. Christian, hello from Colorado. Good to have you. So we have people logging in from the different platforms. So again, if you're just joining now, yeah, feel free to drop in the comments section where you're located, what you are currently building. Will Thomas building a business app with Softr? If you want to tell us a bit more about the use case you're trying to solve, if you have already added workflows to that app, if not, yeah, we can definitely discuss, take any questions you have about workflows during this live. It will be a conversation. It will be a live build. We'll have a couple animations as well. So welcome all. Romain, do you want to say a few words about yourself to introduce?
Yeah, maybe I can start with that. I've been at Softr for about 1 year now, overseeing the workflow product, so collaborating with other parts of the product, but mainly on the workflows. Used to work at N8N before, so another automation platform. We have a good overview of the ecosystem, and later on, maybe we could also discuss if you know other tools and try to find a way to do the same with Softr so that we can show you around. And we will, with Guillaume, go through different workflows, but of course, if you want us to stop on specific patterns, specific actions, let us know in the comments and we'll try to adapt along the way.
Amazing to have you here. Yeah, talking about one of your areas of expertise, which is workflows. Hello, Loretta from Indianapolis. Good to have you all here. And yeah, maybe just a word about myself. I've been in a couple of those lives already, but yeah, joined Softr after 4 years, maybe more than 4 years, actually building with Softr for internal tools, external portals, and yeah, now working on the marketing side of things, creating content, creating some of the templates you can be using within Softr apps, databases, also workflows, and yeah, here to create some content, answer questions, demonstrate a bit our product with Romain. Excellent. So I'm trying to pass a simple API call inside the workflow. Okay, I think we'll cover API calls and explore a bit that topic, how to integrate with those external tools within workflows. And we'll hello everyone who are just joining. We'll be, I think, starting. I have prepared a little game that we can maybe get started with. Let me share my screen. All right, you should be seeing my screen now. I've prepared a little game because so Workflows is a new product within Softr. It has been released around August, September. Romain, do you have the exact date or months?
Yeah, September, the beta launch, and adding new actions and triggers almost every week since.
Yeah. Cool. So Romain, because you are the workflow expert here in the room, I've prepared that little game. Basically, I'll be rolling that, and we'll have a term related to workflows, and we'll have 30 seconds to define it. So it's overall workflows or related to specifically Softr Workflows. If you want to give it a go, form triggers. What is this about? We even have a timer, 30 seconds. How would you define that? Romain, I don't know if.
Oh, sorry. You expect me to? I thought you wanted some answer from.
Yeah.
So maybe let's start with trigger, which is maybe the core of the workflow is really an action that is gonna trigger the workflow. So an event might be schedule based, might be also manual, and a form more specifically is when someone submits a form. Instead of just storing the data, we will trigger a workflow so that you can use the data downstream to potentially store as well, but also to automate other parts of your business logic. So the combination of the feature and the trigger that you can use directly in the workflows.
Yeah, exactly. And what was a game changer for me as well is that when Softr introduced that, it was the first time these UI triggers were really integrated within the app experience for the end user, because natively there is this loading screen that we can show to the user while the workflow is processing, I don't know, maybe matching records together, generating something with AI. And then once the workflow is over, we can actually send the user to either another URL or show a certain message, etc. That was the first time we really had this connection, like such a powerful connection between the UI and the workflow that's actually connected to the database. So yeah, that's one of the particularities. I would say one of the reasons why Softr Workflows are so powerful when combined with those apps is that you cannot natively build that with other platforms.
Yeah, if you do that with other platform, you don't benefit from the synchronous answer that you mentioned. So you can build that, of course, but the way to have that in a platform, integrated platform, make it much easier to have a good user experience. Typically, you can trigger a redirection or trigger some actions just after the submission, which is very powerful.
That's super powerful. And hello, Raymond from Cape Town and everyone joining in, Diletta from Milan. I'll be rolling another term, and yeah, let's define it again.
So yeah, JSON. This one is hard. Maybe if you can show Guillaume at the same time what it looks like. So for some of you that might know that JSON is a way of visualizing data, and it's usually used as the support we use to transfer data through API. Not all API, but mostly API use JSON. So you send data as JSON. It's a representation of the data. And you can also receive as answer some JSON as well. It's something that is structured. So what you see here is a list of objects. So you have several objects, and within each object you have key value pairs. So here you have 5 objects, and usually when you have an items like that, you will iterate through the items, and for the first item potentially you will want to update information, to trigger specific action. Then you go to the second one, etc. So we will use, and we will see later on, we will use a bulk action for that to go through the items. And then within the item, you can just select the key to access the values.
Yeah, exactly. And it's would you say that we are dealing with JSON directly within Softr Workflows, or it's actually handled for you? Would you recommend to learn a bit about the language or the...
Yeah, I think it's good to know how to interpret that, even though if you don't use advanced actions such as call API or webhooks, you don't necessarily need to know that, because we have an abstraction, a visual abstraction on top of the JSON. But it's also always good to know that. It's also, talking about AI, AI is good at interpreting JSON as well. So sometimes you will only send some JSON data, and the AI is able to interpret that and give you natural language in response. So yeah, I think it's interesting to have, but you don't need to be necessarily technical. It's just to understand the patterns.
Yeah, and I am myself not a technical person, and I got interested into learning JSON, especially to build a bit more advanced automations. And in the end, once you understand the patterns and here understand that you have always this what we call the key, and then you have different type of values, so either a number or a string or another array, etc. You start to understand a bit how this works, and it starts to make sense. And within Softr, you don't directly work with the JSON like that. It's all nicely formatted, so it makes it easier for you to work with. But it is actually under the hood, usually always JSON processing. And when you call an API, what you get as a response is usually JSON. So that's an important one. And we'll maybe also see this structured output format for the AI steps in Softr if we have time later. So that's a nice term to define. Let's go for another one. AI co-builder. What is that within Softr Workflows?
So, I mean, this is something everyone can understand generally, but in the context of workflows, so we have, and I show you later, maybe I can show you just now to illustrate. We have a co-builder contextual to the workflow that can help you build some part of the workflow. So you could use that to maybe generate the outline of the workflow by describing what you want, or you could use that more specifically to help you, for instance, to write code. So we have an action which is able to run code, JavaScript or Python, and you could use the co-builder as well to help you generate the code. So from natural language, you could generate some code here. And we will have pretty soon a bigger launch, which is the co-builder at Softr level that will help you build, of course, the workflows, but the app, the database, and everything together. So, of course, the ambition is to have something that is at the whole level, and we will see that later. A lot of time, the workflows are actually interacting with the app, with the database as well. So you could trigger and manipulate all that directly through the co-builder very soon.
And the wow effect I had is that I actually created my own workflow that was sending a Slack notification to my team whenever a new form was submitted or something like that. And I asked the co-builder write a better Slack notification. It actually replaced the text I had in this Slack notification with a more, I was too lazy to write it all, and it actually just replaced what I had already there, which was really really cool. And I would say the best way to use it is to save time by orchestrating all these actions, by asking the co-builder, describing what you want to build, and it will give you a first version that you can then iterate on pretty easily. Should we do a last term, and then we're maybe going into the platform to see some examples or to build? AI action. Yeah, that's a good one.
So this one we will illustrate very specifically just after, but so we have triggers. We talked about form trigger, and we have action. So action or steps downstream, and one of those type of action are AI actions. Those AI actions allow you to call AI models and to do different actions through that. So we have predefined actions such as classification, summarization, or advanced prompts where you could do everything you can imagine by prompting yourself and integrating within the prompt also some data, might be in JSON format, for instance, or might be raw data from the previous step. And we have, maybe just to finish on this one, we have Softr AI, which is action that use the credits that you gain through Softr. And for some plans or higher plans, we have bring your own keys AI actions. So you could use Anthropic, Gemini, OpenAI, Mistral AI as well, with your own API key if you have that, and to do exactly the same actions.
And in Softr AI, we also let you pick
yes,
from many models, many providers, so you can decide usually how big like the model should be depending on the complexity of the task, etc. Cool. I think we've covered some triggers, some actions, some advanced terms related to workflows. That was a great introduction into the world of workflows. And what could be interesting now is to actually look into one workflow to understand how they are really being built. And Romain, I know you have prepared a couple examples. So we can get your insights on how to build them, how they look like, how the building experience is.
Before actually opening the workflows, I'm going to just give you a quick tour of Softr, because the workflows are actually going to use different parts of Softr. So I want to define those first. So I created an app, product feedback portal, as a test app that we will use throughout the different workflows. This app is composed of some pages and blocks connected to a database that you have here with some fake data. And we have forms. So maybe at the end, we will also mention that forms, that we mentioned with form triggers that are individual pages to build multi-step forms. So now the workflows. So I'm going to start from scratch. Workflows are top-level objects that you have here, but you can also create a workflow from within an app if you want to connect this workflow directly to this app. So I'm going to...
Is it fair to say that app, or what we can call interface, database, and workflow are the three building blocks or three parts of what we can call a full stack app? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, maybe we could add the integration well. So, but integration by definition are outside of Softr, but a lot of the workflows are also using external integration. But the three native parts of the apps: visual interface, database, and workflows, and they are also communicating out with the outside world through integrations that I'm gonna cover throughout the different examples. So for the workflow, let's start from scratch. Every workflow starts with a trigger, and a single trigger for now. So as we defined during the game, trigger or events or sequence that will trigger, that will launch a workflow that will be a sequence of actions. So there is different types of triggers very quickly, and we drill down later on. There is the Softr native triggers. So might be related to the database. So for instance, very basic example is a record is added in a database, maybe the most basic one, or record is updated. Those are very important one. There is the Softr apps triggers. So something is actually happening on the app. An example is someone click on a button and trigger a workflow, or someone submit a form. Those we will cover a little bit later, because they are very specific in the way that you can actually respond to this trigger with something visual directly after the interaction has ended. And this is something that you cannot do with an external tool, and this is really very differentiating. Then you will have the webhook. So webhook, what is a webhook? It's an endpoint that you can call from external services. So you will get a URL that you will be able to call from your own services, your own API, or from other tools. Typically, you could call that if you use Zapier or other tools. You can call this webhook to say, okay, I want to trigger something on Softr Workflows.
Basically webhooks. It was difficult for me to understand in the beginning a couple years ago. It's basically the way for apps to communicate a bit instantly. And one example is, for example, Stripe. When you set up your Stripe, you can give them your webhook where they can notify you whenever something specific happens in your Stripe. So, for example, whenever you get a new customer in Stripe, you can give them almost like your phone number, but this is the web version of that. That's my way of understanding it. You give them your webhook, and they will kind of call this number whenever there is a new customer.
Yeah, you can think about that like something that is listening to external notifications. And for instance, Stripe is gonna notify you when something happened, and they're gonna hit this endpoint with some information that you can use then in the workflow. But you could use that yourself. For instance, if you want to trigger a workflow from your own app that is not on Softr, you could use that. The reverse part is the call API. Call API is actually making a request to an API, and you could very well have a call API that is actually calling a webhook. So that's a little bit the way to see those. Then the scheduling, you can define at what period you want the workflow to be triggered. Those are the native triggers. And then you have the integration-based triggers. Those are triggers that will launch the workflow when something happens in an outside integration. So typically, Airtable, you have a record added trigger that will launch the workflow when a record is added on Airtable. We have something similar with Gmail, when you can define that workflow is going to be launched when you receive an email. We are going to actually launch a generic email trigger very soon as well. So a little bit like webhook, you will get not an endpoint, not a URL, but you will get an email address, a fake email address. And whenever someone sends something to this address, this will trigger the workflow, and you will be able to use the content of the email, including the attachments, to do something downstream.
So that will be not directly connected to one of your email addresses you're using, but it will generate a mini email address that you can then maybe...
It will be a no-pack address that you can, for instance, put in CC when you send an email, or that you can share with your collaborators if you want something where it's easy to forward some emails and to do something with those emails.
That's super helpful, because I had questions from people asking, okay, I have a team of 5 salespeople. How do we make sure we store in a Softr database all the emails coming in? And with that, you wouldn't have to create one Gmail trigger per person, but you could have a rule in your inbox so that whenever you receive an email, it auto sends it, like forwards it to that unique address, and that would be your workflow. That's super. I'm glad this is happening.
This should be released before the end of the month. We also, mentioning the roadmap, we are also going to launch a Slack trigger. That is going to be a trigger when someone posts a message on a specific channel. It will be a little bit the same pattern. You will be able to access the content of the message to do something in the workflow. Potentially, then you could also answer in a thread to this notification to automate the full pattern. And we have Notion and Calendly. Calendly, maybe quickly, important one is to be able to trigger something when an invitee is scheduling an event in Calendly. So those are the actions. I'm gonna just open one I already started to give you an overview of the actions. So when you have a workflow, you start with the trigger. You can test this trigger actually to get some data to be able then to build the later part of the workflow. Then you will want to add actions. So of course, and we're gonna see different use case. The action will depend on what you want to achieve, but I'm gonna also give you a very quick tour on what we have available, also mentioning the one we're gonna release soon. So the main categories we have, maybe starting with the AI or actions that allow you to calls LLM and to do different actions with those. So I mentioned the right to generate some text, summarize and categorize, or the custom prompt to do everything else with an open prompt and potentially with a specific output schema. So this is AI, and as I mentioned, we have Softr AI. So it's not our own model. It's just that we distribute through our own credits the different providers. And if you have your own keys, you can also use the native actions there with your own keys for OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini, and Mistral. Then we have the communication, sending email through Gmail or with your own Postmark account if you have one, sending SMS, text messages with Twilio, or sending Slack notification, both direct messages or channel messages.
I must say that the Slack one is one that I use the most, and most of my workflows are actually quite simple, 2-3 steps, and that one I usually have it whenever a project reaches the status in review or something like that. I get a notification on Slack in the channel I select, and I can also add this variable to have the project name, or even the URL that I can open to directly find that project in my app. So this one is definitely very useful.
And on this topic, we are going to release end of this week a new Slack action for sending interactive messages that allows human in the loop. So I'm gonna, if you have time at the end, show you maybe a quick demo of that, but it will give you the ability to send a message that contains buttons, action buttons, and then to be able to react to user that press those buttons. So typically you could have an approval flow with those, with an approve or reject button, and based on the response of the user, you can have a workflow that take this into account. So we will have the same with emails.
You have a purchasing management app where employees can make purchase requests. These requests come directly are directly landing in a channel that Tim, our head of finance, is managing. If it's a small request, he can approve directly from there. If it needs more time to look into it, he can open the app and do the validation there directly. That's
and it's also often used with AI actions just before. So for instance, you want to use AI to do some categorization, but you still want a human confirmation. So you can have a message with a predefined category using AI. And then based on the operator answer, you can override the categorization if needed. So this is a pattern very helpful with all AI agent-based workflows.
That's
and we will have with emails, meaning that it won't be a Slack notification, but it will be an email, and you can answer to this email with predefined buttons as well.
And we got a question, and I also take the opportunity to say, if you have any question, any comment or something you would like to see during this live, please feel free to share it. We got a question about an integration with Teams, Outlook instead of Gmail and Slack. Is it something we have in the pipeline, or?
Yeah, Outlook integration is underway. We do have some last discussion to be able to get the authorization from Microsoft, but it should be released, I would say, in April, because it's a little bit time consuming. So it will be the equivalent of what we have with Gmail, but with Outlook. Regarding Teams, SharePoint, we also have that on the roadmap, but it will be later this year. And and you could also already from now use the call API action. We have OAuth support, so yeah, that's an advanced way to do that, but it's also feasible, and we can help you with that as well. So this is for communication. So quickly on data, it will be all action related to database, so software database or external services, creating data, updating data, deleting data, essentially. Events, Google Calendar and Calendly to create events there. So logic, we will focus on them in the example, but those are actions that allow you to create some patterns within the workflow. So for instance, filtering, if you have a list of elements and you want to exclude some elements based on condition, you can use a filter. Branching, so we mentioned the human in the loop. So typically you have a workflow where you can have either an approval or rejection. You can use then a branch to create two subpaths based on either those answers and to do different actions downstream. The wait, as the name say, just to pause the workflow. a use case there could be you want to send a reminder after a given period. You could put a wait in a workflow, for instance, for marketing automation.
Or for a mini onboarding, if you build an app like I would say a customer portal and you invite your customers, you could have a mini onboarding sequence that's going through email with some info on day 1, and then on day 2 and day 5, and eventually on day 5 you actually check in the database. So after 5 days, if they have provided their information, and then you have branches. So if not, then we send them that follow-up email, and if yes, we stop here. So that's super convenient to build.
And finally, the bulk actions or loop. So we saw in the example a JSON that contains several items. So an array of items, for instance. In those cases, if you want to do an action for each of those items, you will need to loop across the items. I will show later on a concrete example, but the bulk action then create a subpass that is going to be executed for each element of the list. This is important, for instance, if you have a workflow where you want to fetch a list of records from your database and to iterate through those records to update data, for instance, or to do some cleaning. So that's a use case, a common use case. One thing to be careful with looping is if you have big items in terms of performances and cost, the loop can create a lot of runs. So that's usually combined with filtering or by having a filtering when you fetch the items, so that you do not have too many elements. And finally, the utilities. So it's a generic action that we have. Maybe the most important one will be the call API. So we mentioned the webhook as trigger. The call API is a little bit the opposite, to be able to trigger an HTTP request to an external service, to send data, to get data as well. The run custom code gives you the ability to execute code in JavaScript or Python. It can open up a lot of use cases, but typically it can be used to transform data, to do some data cleaning, to do some advanced filtering as well. The branches, actually, they were already in Logic, the weight as well. And the transform data, it's a way to use formula. So for those of you that are familiar with our database or similar database where you can use formula to define the value of a row, transform data allow you to use formula, but to transform the data from a previous step. So typically you want to transform, you want to extract the day from a date. You can use a transform data. You want to do some basic arithmetics, you can use also this as well. Or you want to do, you want to transform a string to put it to lowercase, you can use also a specific formula. We have hundreds of formulas, of course, so it will depends a lot on your use case, and we have a pretty thorough documentation for everything that is feasible. And usually what is feasible with transform data is also feasible with run custom code. So it's a choice in terms of complexity, but also in terms of what you already have potentially in other systems and that you want to bring into Softr. So that's for the overview. Just having a look at the question, if there are some on some of that. So I don't think so. So maybe we can go with the first example, or Guillaume, maybe you wanted to add something?
Yeah, no. I mean, I see a comment about an API call that returns 400. This will need to be looked at on an individual basis, but also for the sharing the knowledge of 400 code. What are these codes when we talk about APIs, just to understand?
Yeah, usually the code that start by 4, the status that start by 4 means that there is a technical error in the service that you call. And so we should have a look at that. Potentially, this is something that is ill-formed in the request. So it might also be due to something on our side, but it's just the answer of the service says that he's not understanding the request. So yeah, maybe after we can have a look with the support. Maybe if you have an ID to share, we can have a look as well.
And it's also a bit the same as when you open a website that's broken, you get a 404 page, or if you open a page you're not authorized to see, you get a 401. And it's actually like talking about Softr apps. These are some of the utility pages of your apps that we provide out of the box when you build a business app. And imagine one of your users is opening a URL that doesn't exist. There will be a 404 kind of page that they will be seeing, and you can actually customize that, etc. So it's all part of the way the web interacts together, and we find that in workflows as well.
Great. So let's start with the first example.
Mm-hmm.
So this one, to define the purpose, let's say you have a product app where you collect feedbacks from customers, and you want to analyze automatically those feedbacks to potentially assign them to specific people in your organization. So I'm going to use a database where the feedbacks are stored. After I can show you the actual database, but the idea here is to trigger the workflow every time a record is added. So to do that, we use a trigger record added from Softr database. And when you create a trigger, you need to select the table that you want to listen to. So you will select your accounts, and then you will look for your database. So here it will be the product feedback portal. Of course, in your case, it might be a different one. And within the database, you will select the table you want the items. So I'm going to select the feedback. And to be able to build the workflow, usually you want some text data to be able to configure the downstream actions. So I'm going to test, and here I get an item with different fields. So it's not a JSON as we mentioned before, but it's a little bit similar. It's a structured data with different fields and some values. So now what I want to do is to categorize the feedback that you have here. It's very basic. I want to either say it's a bug or it's a feature request. So to do that, I'm going to use some AI, an AI action, which is the Softr AI action categorize. As Guillaume mentioned before, you can use different models that have some pros and cons in terms of cost, in terms of efficiency, based on the use case. So I'm going to use just for the test GPT 5.1, but you can test a different one. When do you
have a recommendation, like if we had to recommend 3 models for a use case that's very light, medium, and big, what is your go-to usually?
It will depend. I think here we are on a basic categorization task. I think a cheaper model like GPT 4.0 could be enough. Or even Mini IQ could be a good choice as well. And Gemini 2.5 Flash. It really depends on the complexity of the task and of the type of task. So here we are just about categorization. If you were about generating some code, for instance, you would probably prefer to use an Anthropic model such as Sonnet or even Opus. And if you are in something where you need more thinking to produce some thoughts, to do some decisions in terms of using tools, etc., you would probably use the state-of-art models such as GPT 5.2 or even Opus. So yeah, it depends a lot of the use case. The good way to also do that is to do multiple tests and to compare the outputs. That's actually something that you can do in the same workflow. You could potentially have different actions with different models and to do a run and to compare the results. That's usually
the results in a database where then manually you maybe do a batch of 20 requests each and get an idea of which model. Overall, what we can recommend, I mean, as a rule, is to use the smallest capable model, or so you are not using the the biggest model available, just to do a mini categorization to know whether it's a bug or a feature request here. So that could be a good way to go about it.
So now you have the action. Usually you will need to configure this action. So it will depend. Here we set up the model. Then we need to say which is the text that you want to categorize. So to do that, we use what we call variables. Variables are essentially a way to point to the results of previous steps or the result of the trigger. So in this case, we will point to the content of the record that has been added, the description of this record. So to do that, you can use the @ sign here, and you can explore the other steps. So here I'm going to search in the record added, and I want to use the details. So what this means is that each time this workflow is going to run, each time a record is added, the Softr AI action will try to categorize the value of the details for this record. And then you select the categories, or you set the categories you want to use potentially for this description. So here just bug and feature request. And same, you will do a test to be able then to use the result. So here it decided it was a feature request. And we could have tested with another one that would result into bug. You will always have either bug or feature request. If you have something where you potentially have cases that do not fit in either of those buckets, you should probably use also another category to be sure that the LLM do not overfit the result in an improper category. But just for the sake of the test, we'll keep it like this. Now we will use a very powerful action, which is the branches. So we have two scenarios possible here. Either it's a bug or a feature request. So to be able to do different things based on that, we'll create a branch, or two branches actually, with some condition. So the first branch, we will set the condition to the result of the categorize step is bug. And we will do the same for the result is feature request on the other side. And then we decide that if it's a bug, I want to notify a specific channel that there is a bug and potentially to add the contents of the initial feedback. So I'm going to use a post-channel message action, like a Slack action, to notify the channel workflow webinar with the message. And here, exactly as you did in the categorize step, you're going to use a combination of text that you can write and variable that you can select. So a new bug has been reported, and then you select in the output of the record added the email of the submitter, for instance, the details, and you are able to test it as well. So it's the final step here. So the test is just to be sure of the output. You don't see it here, but I just received on Slack a notification with the content of this message. And we won't necessarily finish the other branch, but potentially you could do something different, notify a different channel, for instance, on the other branch.
And I guess a good use of those in the context of apps would be right before sending the notification to actually store the result in the same Softr database where we would have a field for the category.
Yeah.
Once it's stored, you let the team know so they can jump in.
Let's do it exactly as you say. You're right. Usually that's what you want to do. So the way to do that is to update the record. So you can use the same database, the same table. And here it's a little bit different. You need to say which record to update. And to do that, you use the record ID that you can get from the initial trigger. So this record has been added, you categorized it, and then you update the same record with the new category. So record added, you select the record, and then in the fields, you are able to set. So I don't even know if I have a category field, maybe not. But let's say you have a category field that you create on the database, and you will just select this field and select the value from the variable here. So this essentially will update the record that has been added and putting the category to bug.
And one way you mentioned that very soon we'll have that human in the loop step. We could imagine an AI workflow where we tell that if the AI is not 100% sure, or if there is for example, if it's not clear, a clear yes or a clear no, or a clear category A or category B, it could output something that tells that there is uncertainty, and it would then go through a path that requires this human in the loop step.
Yeah, exactly. So to do that, we could use the custom prompt. It's something where you do not just want a category, you want potentially a category and a percentage of confidence. So you will use the action that I just put here, which is custom prompt. And you will say return a category, either bug or feature request, and percentage or Boolean to be, or maybe we can say if you're unsure or unsure. And then you will have another branch that will just say that you can add here, up a new branch, and you say if unsure, then human in the loop will be reviewing the categorization.
And there are many ways actually to get there. Either it's a specific category, or it anyways suggests a category, but then gives a confidence score, and then your branch can be based on that score. And if it's below 70, then there is a chance you want to check it. So there are many ways to do so.
Exactly. And usually that's to be able to use that, you will need to use structured output. So I'm going to show you the difference. If you don't use that, the output that you will get is, as you see here, it's some text. But if it's some text, it won't be easy to use that as a filter in the branches. So usually you like to have structured output. And this way you will have something that you can see here. It's not text, it's an object, category and confidence score. And that's where you can use the confidence score then here to do, so here up is, so it should be, maybe let's ask him confidence score as integer, because you want it to be a number to be able to up.
And ideally, you could also declare how this structured output would look like to make sure there is no variations in these keys, etc. So you either provide an example in here, or the schema. There is a certain terminology that you can basically ask AI to write it for you.
Yeah, you can use a JSON schema to have something that is completely deterministic. It's a little bit more advanced, but essentially it will describe the schema that you expect. And it will be always the same. So you won't have any risk of hallucination that give you a different type of answer. And it makes it more stable if you use that downstream to do some filtering or branching.
There is a question, I mean, not directly related to workflows, but then someone replied that you can choose, maybe just to clarify here, maybe the different types of AI features within softwares, and for which you can actually select models, etc. Maybe a first element of answer is that for Ask AI in the vibe coding block, we build the technology that's underlying and select the best fitting model for those. Whereas here in workflows, you can select, as we just saw, the model you want to power this AI step, either by using Softr AI, so that will directly be using your AI credits, or if you're on a certain plan, you can also bring your own key. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Romain. But just
no, essentially that Softr AI means that it uses credits that you have included in your subscription. So depending on the plan, you have different amount of credits. But then you can use each models. So you can use using those credits, Gemini, Anthropic, or OpenAI. and you don't need to have a direct contract with them. We will use our own contracts. If you have already some API keys for those services or your own contract, you can choose to use directly the provider. This is what we call bring your own key, and then you need to specify the key that you want to use, and then it's exactly the same action that are available.
Perfect. Do you have, Romain, an example of a workflow that's directly connected to an app with maybe this either form trigger or run custom workflow trigger, so we can see how it all integrates in these business apps that you can build with Softr?
So I build a very basic app to collect product feedbacks. So this is essentially a list of feedbacks where a user can send a feedback or can upvote the feedback from other users. The way it works, Softr UI workflows, is that the trigger is actually when someone click on this button. So to do that, usually you create a block with, for instance, here a list of feedbacks. And for each item, you will be able to add what we call item buttons. So you have different time of actions, open record, and so on. But the one that is interesting to us is run custom workflow. What this will do is it will trigger a specific workflow each time someone click on this button, and it will pass some context as well together that you can use later in the workflow. So here, for instance, I set it up so that each time someone click on this button, it triggers the workflow upvote with the record ID that has been clicked. Now the workflow itself, we can test it here. So someone click, you get a record ID. And what we want to do here,
maybe just to understand before we deep dive into the workflow. So yeah, the upvoting feature is probably in your database. You have a number field and you want to add one whenever someone clicks. Is that how
exactly? Let's show the database. You're right. So the database of feedbacks is all the feedbacks, and each feedback has, I need to find it here, a vote count, which is an integer. Okay. And we want to increment.
Yeah. And that's not a native, it's not a very common edit record action that would be natively something you can set up in the Softr app directly. So here the way to go about it is to have a mini workflow.
Yeah. Here for if you can edit, so everyone can update it and change the amount, and potentially if you do it properly, you will want to restrict the number of time a given user can vote and so on. So here it's a very basic illustration, but this is to how you can implement some business logics triggered directly within the app, but with your own logic and your own database, and you're potentially also calling external services if needed.
And in the end, limiting to like one vote per user would work very well with the workflow, because you would have maybe another table with the logs of upvotes. So one row per user per vote, and you would in your workflow first check if they already voted for that feedback. And if so, then you have a branch that actually doesn't do anything or actually displays
probably a filter, and you will say if someone has already voted for this specific feedback, then nothing happened. Exactly.
Yeah, excellent.
But here in this case, we don't have this, so it's unlimited voting. But I'm going to show just the logic and how we can use some formula to increment. So not this one, this one. Here we have the action, and the workflow is here. So you can edit the workflow directly from here, or you can go back in the listing of workflows to find it back. So what is happening here is someone is clicking. Then I need to find the record that I want to update. To do so, I will use a find record action by selecting with the ID. So the ID is the one that I get from the trigger. So I get this record, and I have the current count here available. And now I have different ways to do that, to increment. So I'm going to show two ways to do it with either the transform data action or the run custom code. The first way is to use the transform data with a formula that is gonna do field count plus 1, very basic. It will get the variable from the existing vote count and add 1. Test it here, it had 1. Another way to do that is to use the run custom code to do it here in JavaScript. If you don't know how to write JavaScript, you can use the help me write code to generate that and to say add 1 to the vote. And it should generate the proper code. At least I hope so. Automatically. It's a very basic one here, but of course, if you want something more complex, sorry, it's finished, and then you will update the workflow with the new value by selecting the record, so the same one that triggered the workflow, and setting the new value for the event count with replace existing value with the new vote one. Testing. And finally, usually you will want to end the user interaction, and that's what we mentioned at the beginning with the form trigger. You can decide what you show. Here we are going to show a success toast message, and potentially we could redirect the user to another page, open a different URL, an external URL. And here it's important, we will enable the reload all blocks on current page so that the value of the votes is automatically updated. And to see it in action, I'm gonna open the app in preview here. And if you trigger it here, it launches the workflow, it updates the votes, and immediately you have the output here. So yeah, that's a basic one, but you can imagine many other use cases using the same logic.
That's very cool. I might have one workflow to show. Let me bring it here. So yeah, maybe this one. Okay, I just finalized one. It's also to say how fast it can go. Right, I need to share the other screen. So what I wanted to build, okay, you should see it now. Remove that. Okay, what I wanted to build is, you know, these workflows where you want to, so you are storing a lot of records in a database, and I can think of many use cases, but here I stored a lot of insights into a database. So one record is one insight, and we have 3 types of insights, either about format, product, company, and it's in the context of marketing, content generation. And it's the concept of skills for AI agents that made me think about it. You know, if you store a lot of insights here, we have 10, and they are not too long, but if you have 50 of those, how do you, in an AI workflow, have an AI that's smart enough to find the right records to use and to only use those, while making sure it's not using, you know, the full text at once, which might be either creating a lot of noise for the AI or too big for the context window, etc. So I tried to break it down a bit, this topic, and the use case would be, if we have here marketing requests, so here a LinkedIn post about our Kubernetes product. If we want AI to help doing that, if we look at our database of insights, we have here the SEO playbook, which is not relevant here. Newsletter framework, not relevant. LinkedIn post, this one is actually useful. And then here we have our Kubernetes product. So the other products are maybe not interesting to have. But here we have the company narrative and the company overview. So from this list of 10 insights, actually only 4 of them, 3 or 4 of them should actually be leveraged if we wanted AI to help write that LinkedIn posts. Does that make sense for now in terms of the task for the optimal use of AI? I then built a workflow. I was like, okay, how can we build that in Softr, to have an AI that selects the best insights to use without giving to an AI, the full detail of every single insights to avoid being inefficient. So I created, and let's see if, I think I turned it on. If I hit launch as a status now, it should start my workflow, but we can, now it's in progress and it will work on that. But basically how I did it is I am, so the trigger of my workflow, let me just make it a bit bigger. The trigger of my workflow is the AI status is launch, which is what I just did right here. Then I added a step to just, for that same record, set the status as in progress, which is why we directly got that in progress. And then we find all those skills, those insights into the insights database. We just list them all, so the full details. But then we use a code node, like a code action, that will just return this time, the ID and the title of each insight. Because actually here, the title of an insight tells enough about, if an AI had to judge if this insight will help or not for our task, it's enough to know if it will be like, to select the ones out of the 10 insights to select. So I'm generating a shorter version. I only keep this title and the record ID because I'll be using it later. So then I have an AI right here that selects the insight. So I, let me just see, did I actually, I'm not sure I mapped the right here. The task was the title here. Yeah, I'm not sure how I set it up. So I have a small AI model that will, no, actually, wait, the task itself is that, okay, but what I missed is all insights. And here I'll pass the body of the insights. That's what I missed. Yeah. So I give the task title. So write an article, write a LinkedIn post about that. And I pass the list of all the insights titles and IDs. So if I run that, it will return a list of record IDs because I instructed it to do so with this structured schema. So the output is a list of ID that I can then reuse in a code to, look at the initial list of all the skills and the ones we have selected with our AI. So here we output, again, the full list of skills, etc., but only selecting the ones that got selected by the AI. So here we have the details of all the insights to use. So we give it to an AI to do this task. We give the task again, leveraging those insights. And this time we only use the insights that were selected in a very efficient way. And we store the final contents in here, and we put the AI status to ready. So that's something I could just create now. And yeah, now we have our LinkedIn post that's written in quite an efficient way, where in your database, you can store a lot of your company insights about your different products, maybe your, competitors, your brand guidelines, marketing guidelines, etc. And depending on the task you are currently working on, if now you were looking for an SEO article about our company, not mentioning one specific product, then it might actually be using some other insights, definitely not this one, not this one. So it's way more efficient because you just give to the AI what's relevant. So I don't know what you think about that, Romain, but that's one I just built.
Yeah, that's great. I just saw a question I can answer because the find record action is currently limited to 100 record. We are gonna release probably end of next week a pagination where you're able to go through a native pagination. It will be just a toggle to get all the results. And I'm gonna show maybe an example later on how you use, when you have hundreds of items, those items within the workflow with the loops. But you need to be careful if you have more than 100 records and that you execute actions for each of those records, then potentially it will cost a lot of execution. So Usually, it needs still to be combined with filtering to be sure you do not waste executions. But yeah, it will be released very soon.
Amazing. That's good to know. It's I mean, related to what I just showed. Yeah, I mean, for now, if you store 100 company insights, it's already quite a comprehensive list, but we'll be able to unlock even more scale with that new feature. I have a mini example because we mentioned webhook. I have created a way that our vibe coding block can interface and interact with a webhook. So our block will send to this webhook a certain data. So right here, an email prompt we will write, and it will then listen to the webhook response to reuse that data. So I have this example for an email composer where you can just say, okay, ask Arthur if we can meet tomorrow at 10. And I click generate email. It sends what I just wrote to my workflow, which responds a structured schema with a subject and a body. And I told this vibe coding block, I told it how to listen to the response, because that's the way I set it up in my which one was it? This one, response with body and subject. So this is JSON again. So my block is aware that it should listen to that kind of response to then display it here, and I could have another workflow to just send my email. So that's one way. And if I do a grammar mistake here, I can just maybe copy that and paste it there. So here there is a mistake here. I have another variation where I just click fix grammar, and it will send my text and listens to the response that contains the cleaned text. So this one is now correctly spelled. And we also got a sort of payload with the number of fixes and which fixes got applied immediately, from this AI processing right here. So both of them are using this respond to webhook. So we received the right here. We received the text. We have AI fix the grammar, actually with a very, very small model here by Mistral. We described, and I just described what I wanted to ChatGPT that wrote that for me. So don't get afraid of writing those, but it's basically defining that exact schema here with my corrected text and then all the fixes. So title, explanation, and I respond that so that my here vibe coding block knows how to handle that. If Romain, you want to, I quickly explain from my perspective how this works. If you also have some guidelines, I know that we also enable to select the sources that can call these webhooks. If you want to say a word about that.
Yeah, I think it's a very good illustration to a way to make them communicate. There is some limitation in terms of, so of course you need to go through a vibe coding block. We have on the roadmap the idea to have something native to be able to communicate with those kind of workflows as well. So just mentioning that, and we have some security at the webhook level. I can show you to restrict the domain that are able to call this API. So you can use CORS restriction here to only allow the domain on which the widget is stored. So that's one. And there are also some limitation if the request takes too much time. So for instance, if you have an AI action that takes a lot of time, we have a limit of 120 seconds. So if for long-lasting task, it's better to use different approaches. So, but for example, such as your Guillaume, it's completely fine. And also, we will introduce very soon the ability for AI action to also send attachments. So this is also something you could combine Potentially, you could receive a file on the webhook and then trigger AI action with that.
What I would love to build is indeed a voice to text interface. So imagine you have your field sales out of a meeting, in their car or whatever, just telling about the meeting summary, and that voice note would be transcribed via an AI transcription service, and the text itself would be stored as the meeting summary in their app, so they don't have to on their phone type it all. I know it's annoying, so from there you can really build interesting interfaces. Did you want to share one last thing? And
I think one last one could be, and there were a question on how to deal with many records. I want to show maybe the bulk actions, because this is one we know that can be troublesome. So let's go with this example. I need just to find it here. So I mentioned this use case. There are obviously other ones where you want to iterate through multiple records to do some actions. So it might be you have a list of emails to which you want to send a notification. You have a list of records you want to clean, or you want to update, enrich with, for instance, using AI. So to do that, generally, you will start with a find multiple record action. So the trigger here could be maybe a schedule. So let's imagine a use case where you want to send an email to every, we will use maybe a more recurring schedule every day at any time. So you will have this as a trigger. Then you will find the records that are interesting to you. So using the find multiple record action, potentially combining it with a filtering with some conditions to restrict a little bit the list. So if we test here, we have 9 records. As it was mentioned in the chat, currently the maximum is 100 records, but very soon we will have the ability to enable pagination to get more than 100 records. Then what you are gonna want to do is, since it's a list of items, you need to go through each of them individually. For that, we use a bulk action that is going to decompose this list of elements into a subsequence. So bulk action, as you can see here visually, this sequence is going to be run one time for each of the elements within the records. So you select the records and then you create action. So what I'm going to do is create a filtering. So I will filter the label to only keep the new status. And for each of these items, filtered items, I'm going to call an API and send the value of this item to the API. So to showcase that, I'm going to use a site called Webhook site, which is a webhook that you get to test the output of the call API. So you get an URL and you can put it here in the URL for the call API. In the call API, this is a powerful action, but also a slightly complex one. You select the method. So here, post is to send information. You select the endpoint. Here is the test endpoint, but it could be, if you have an API, it could be also potentially a webhook that you have in another tool, in an A10, in Zapier, if you want to do something that you cannot do with Softr in those tools. And then you need to map the data you want to send there using JSON. So here I'm going to say test and just send the value up that I can get here. And here I need to be sure that I select the value from the current item. This is something that can be confusing. If you select something from here, it will select the value for all items. What you want is to select the value for the current item of the iteration.
So the current project, like if we're having 9 projects, then we take them all one by one, and current item title would be the title of that feedback or something like that.
Yes, exactly. So for instance, let's take the title. And you will, so you need it to be a valid JSON to work. So I'm gonna check quickly, it seems okay. And if I test here, up, I receive the value of this element. And when the workflow is actually gonna run, I'm gonna receive nine requests here. Or maybe it will be something different. As I said, maybe it's an email that you send, and it will send each time to this record with the value of the record. So yeah, this is an important one. And just to summarize, the important part is to be sure to select the proper list into the bulk action, to split it into individual items.
That one you found it from the second step, right? The find multiple records.
Yeah, you will.
Is where you got the list.
I will do it from scratch. You get it from the find multiple records, and you can see here what you want or the records. And this little symbol means it's a list. So you select it here, and you cannot test it directly here, but you can test it once you're within the loop.
I have a use case for that. If you want in your project management app to have projects and tasks, and projects will be related to tasks, so like let's say one project has 5 tasks, and you want an automation to make sure, because you're not always tracking the statuses of the different tasks, when the project gets in status done, then all the related tasks should be set as done as well. So you would have a trigger for the workflow that says when the project is done. So that's one of our triggers, is called when record matches condition. When the project is done, then we will search, so find multiple records, all the tasks that are related to this project. So you will have a list of these 5 tasks, and then you will run a loop on each of these 5 tasks and edit that record to say the status is done. So from there, you make sure that, for whatever project gets done, all the related tasks are done, because we all know how the data is once you close the project, but you didn't look at each individual task, etc. And this is something you can be building, and there are many other use cases for running loops and batch.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. If there is any last question, we can take a question. But I think otherwise we actually missed my second game. Maybe we do just one round of that. I had planned a second one, and it's actually about the part of, okay, I have an app, but what workflows should I be building with this app? So maybe we can take one or two of those while you might send some last questions. I'll be rolling that, and we'll then okay. CRM for lawyers, what could be ideas of valuable workflows for that app? If you want to share one or two, I can also give it a try.
Just looking in the comment, because I think someone was planning a legal case management, so a little bit similar. But maybe I don't know if it's still online. So yeah, I mean, CRM for lawyers, there is different needs. Maybe an interesting one is around contracts. I think around contract, there are many things you might want to do. We have a very interesting integration that is called Docs Automator that enables to generate PDF. So generating a contract automatically, for instance, to sign NDA could be an interesting workflow. So an example to set this up would be potentially you have a database with your clients, and when you use the record meets condition, when the status of this of a new client is pending NDA, let's maybe build it live. Let's see if it works. So record meets condition, we will use. It's just an example. We'll just use. Oops.
You didn't define any condition.
Oh, you're right. I don't know if it works. Yeah. Let's say the status is new. This is really an example. We will generate with Docs Automator a new document. I don't know if I have an automation. Let's see. So this will generate a PDF, and usually what you will want to do is to send this PDF to be signed. So we do not have currently a digital signature automation, but we are planning to add one. So you could use a call API to do that, or you could just send it, and the user is gonna use it. So for instance, here we generated the PDF. You get a URL, and you can use the send email action to send this as an attachment. So you will use the email. We have an email here, NDA, please find attached. And we just released a couple of weeks ago the ability to send attachments. So we'll send the NDA as a PDF.
That was the fastest build ever. Someone just received the.
So yeah, very. Yeah, exactly. I just sent a mock test, so he won't receive that. But yeah, that's an example. We could imagine other for.
I have one. Maybe whenever the clients upload a document that you were expecting, or whenever they send a new request, you would get notified. Or you could have, for your team, for every single rep of your team, lawyers, for example, you could have a weekly digest that summarizes their cases, or something like that. Could be an example. Should we roll one more app to get
maybe just answering someone that you can share the ticket ID, and I will have a look definitely if you send it.
Yeah. Inventory management for retail. What could be a workflow for that app? I'm trying to think.
That's
one.
Yeah.
If the stocks go below a certain threshold that you set for that specific type of products, you could be again notified. It's a lot of notifications in the end, or it could automatically create a purchase request in draft that you can then approve for the dedicated supplier that you've already identified, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. We just released actually the Gmail to action to create drafts. Before we only add
nice.
Send email, but it's true that creating draft is something that is also a good way to do human in the loop.
Beautiful. HR leave and attendance tracker. Maybe at the end of the week, send a digest to the managers. Could be done.
Yeah, digest. So that's actually something we do ourselves. So every day to know who is off. So you can go through the database of days and send a notification to specific channels. So you will very basic one, but useful.
Employee onboarding system. We mentioned, this emailing sequence with like the wait action, or to send a first email on day 1, day 3, day 5 to share the relevant information and spread it across different emails could be one, and definitely also to let the HR team know if there was any questions submitted or overall for an employee portal whenever there are new requests, new tickets. Could be interesting to send those reminders. Yeah. All right, I'll do just one. I would love to see the CRM use case. No, not the CRM use case, but it's one for which we had we have an end-to-end build video for CRMs, and here there was some interesting workflows to build. One was, for example, to summarize the activities, so all the emails exchanged and the meeting transcripts we had with one deal, to generate a deal digest to let the sales reps know where they stand for a deal that maybe they haven't looked at for a couple of weeks. Or what did we have as well? A way for the sales reps to write an email directly into the app in a nice interface with the subject and the body, and when they click send, it actually uses a workflow to send the email. Hope this was useful to get some inspiration for some of the apps overall. And yeah, I mean, thank you, Romain, for your time, sharing your insights, also sharing the future of the Softr Workflow product with the upcoming launches. So you mentioned Slack, human in the loop approval.
Yeah, human in the loop will be a Slack interactive message. We'll also have email interactive emails. We'll have a Slack trigger, email receive trigger as well, including parsing of attachments. And we add also, so Google Drive as well is something we are going to integrate to be able to manipulate files, store files.
Yeah.
And we also add, so we just added yesterday, create object in HubSpot action. And we keep adding more actions for the data sources we support. ClickUp is going to be released next week as well. ClickUp actions. We already have Monday, Notion, Airtable, obviously. And yeah, we keep adding more.
And there is one thing we didn't even mention, which is the logs of your workflows. Did we actually mention that? Or should I show you a screen 1 second to show? Yeah, the runs. I think that's interesting. It's basically the...
I don't think let me see if I have, maybe I have here some runs. I don't know, probably because we have an expiration and the one I just shown what test. Maybe you have some on your side, but yeah, you have I have some here. So the runs is a history, some logs of the runs, and so the workflow and individual steps. So here you can see that this workflow had 3 successful steps: trigger webhook, custom prompt, and respond to webhook action. It used some AI, software AI, so you can see how many credits were spent. And sometimes we'll have errors. It's not the case here, but when they occur, you can have some detail, and it helps you troubleshoot and potentially fix the workflow very easily.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, we just missed that part, and it's actually very important when you want to keep your work, like to maintain it, to verify what happened, when it ran, etc. It's really useful to have the logs, the runs available here. And we have a last question, maybe about Smart Suite. Will it be included in the data sources?
Yeah, it will be included eventually. I don't have a precise ETA, but should be around Q2.
Perfect. Well, that was a lot of insights. If there is any further question, you can share them. I mean, there are many ways to connect with Softr. You can, join our Luma calendar, which is where we announce all these upcoming events and live sessions. We have our LinkedIn page where we share also a lot of this news. You can create a free Softr account if you haven't got one already, and you'll also be enrolled in our newsletter where you receive all the news. And you'll probably very easily find us on LinkedIn as well if you want to continue the conversation. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll be planning some more dedicated sessions to the different parts of our product or use cases. Thank you again, Romain, and have a good day, all.
Bye-bye.